Here we come, blue and white, and we're looking good. You'll be in for a fight, and we fight pretty good. Getting goals is our job, and we get goals good. Looking good, we are Carlisle United.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Brunton Bugle, the number one place to get your Carlisle United fix in the podcast world. I'm Lee Rooney.
And I'm Dan McLennan.
There's only one team in Cumbria, and that's the mighty Blues.
Up
United
Blues.
Victorious in Furness. As victory over Barrow ends Cooper's reign, we look back on the Cumbrian derby success while looking ahead to the clash for the form teams against Bristol Rovers and a midweek trip to Rochdale. Oh, that just got a bit too big for my boots there. I didn't know that long intro there.
You got very aggressive at the Rochdale there, didn't you?
Just because I knew I was running out of time. I was just so annoying.
But I thought you had loads of time and you just went, Rochdale!
The thing is, you're ever so slightly behind me on the thing. That's the way the recordings work online, unfortunately. So, bit frustrating there. But hey, tell you what wasn't frustrating. This weekend's win over Barrow, was it, Dan? Glorious day out on the...
should have been 5.
On the Furness Peninsula. Yeah. Lovely.
That's one description of it. I could think of many less salubrious words.
Yeah, there was some nice bits to it. Train journey down.
Yeah, train journey home, yeah.
That one as well, yeah. There you go. We've got a lot to pack in this week, so let's get straight into it, shall we? We've got a little bit of news to do, haven't we? We're going to cover the midweek fixture. Cumberland Cup. It was Cumberland Cup action in midweek at Guildford Park as United took on City in the second derby for the Blues in the space of a few days. But unfortunately, the result in the Border City derby wasn't quite as positive as the weekend fixture, was it, Dan? Mark Birch's side fell to a 2-1 defeat despite putting a strong lineup out. I mean, first teamers Magnus Norman, Lewis Bell, Mitchell Roberts, Luis Alessandra, Josh Dixon, Owen Windsor, Gimme Toure, Sam Fishburne, more on him in a minute, and Tyrese Matoya all started, but they're unable to get a victory, with the Sky Blues securing a place in the final next month at French Fields against Wethering's United. You were going to go to this originally, weren't you, Dan? But unfortunately you couldn't because of work.
Yeah, no, I'd work, so I couldn't make it. But good crowd of over 500, seemingly. Yeah,
it was really, really good to see for Carl City. Few people we know went to the game and they've given us sort of a bit of an idea of what happened, haven't they? Obviously, the Blues took the lead in the first half as Omatoy finished smartly after Toure drove forward from a quick free kick in United's own half to set him up. But the second half, United just took the foot off the pedal. And the hosts got back into the game through Jordan Holt first scoring, and then they took the lead when United's Charlie Watt, who had only been on the pitch for 9 minutes, picked up his second booking to concede a penalty that was converted by Jordan Irving. Proved to be the winning goal as United huffed and puffed but failed to find their way back into the game. Not a great result for the first teamers playing in this game, is it? I mean, these results can happen, can't they? They do occasionally. But as the first team,
it's not the first time we've been beaten in the Cumberland Cup, and it won't be the last. But given the level of player on the pitch, it tells you quite a lot about some of the lone players and the backup players. You know, I mean, Paul Simpson was there watching. I don't think he'll have been overly impressed. And
I mean,
there's not many of those names you would expect to make a difference really at the moment.
I mean, I'm looking at one example here. I mean, this is not me picking on him, but Josh Dixon should be looking and thinking, Callum Guy out potentially for a little bit. Chance for me to impress and show I deserve a place in midfield. From speaking to some people who were there, said he just didn't really do it, unfortunately. And he's not the only one, though. You know, that's a fair point we've got to make there. But yeah, like you said, when you look at it, it's not great. I think City had pretty much their strongest team out, didn't they? I think for this game. Plenty of ex-Blues in there. I'm looking at it.
Loads.
Kieran Olsen, Dan Kirkup, Jordan Holt, Kieran Kerr. Don't know if there's any others.
There's a couple of others. Yeah, there's a couple of others have been involved.
Very, very young age. I think quite a few of them haven't they? But I think Simpson, who plays from Josh Simpson, might be Paul's nephew, possibly. I think I seem to remember. Mm. But yeah, so not a great result for them. Not really much of an impression given to Simmo for that. Should we talk about the aftermath after the game?
Yeah, the biggest story came afterwards, didn't it? It's appeared as though some of the younger Carlisle players were messing about on Snapchat before the game.
You said Snapchat like such a grande there, even though I know you use Snapchat. So it's a weird one, isn't it?
Well, yeah, no, but this is typical use of snappy, as they call it, by the young'uns, you know. And I think it was a Snapchat with, was it Carr, Ballardo and Fishburne?
Yeah, I think it was Ryan Carr, I think Nick Ballardo and Sam Fishburne. They're all sat in Sam Fishburne's car. Just like a little sort of messing around before the game, isn't it? The problem is the caption on said photo said, "Game day v 50-year-olds, let's have it." Well, the problem is the Snapchat they sent, they didn't just send it to their mates. It's one of these ones where it's almost like a story on Instagram, isn't it, where you put it publicly. And clearly someone who knows them also knows the Carlisle City players. Has seen it.
Which is no big surprise, you know.
Yeah, it's a small city, you know. Sort of
football circle.
And what have they done? Of course, what they've done is they've sent it to the Carlisle City players. Well, you've pretty much done the team talk for them then. And from speaking to someone I know who's at the game, who said Sam Fishburne just didn't look on it at all in this match. And basically, Dan Kirkup was kicking him around the pitch for most of the game, which you'd expect Dan Kirkup to do. He's a player who's played at that level for a long time now, and he knows
his way around the pitch at that level.
Believe me, he does. He's not going to a comment like that, and he's had the last laugh basically. I mean, Sam Fishburne, the way he was scoring for Lancaster City early in the season, he should be relishing a game like that, thinking I can get a couple of goals in this game. And I know, yes, he relies a little bit on his teammates to provide them for him, but from what I heard, he just was not in the match at all. Yeah. Basically, after the game, Kirkup, Jordan Holt, I think it's Tyler Bowman, is it? I think, and Irving all tweeted about it, didn't they? I mean, what I'd say is Holt's got a bit of a nerve doing that, I think, based on the fact that, reported that he didn't always have the best attitude at Brunton Park from what I've been told. And, he certainly dropped down the leagues since he left Carlisle. So, a little bit of a, get back in your box a little bit there. But, fair play if they've used it as their team talk before the game. And their manager certainly commented it after the match, didn't he? Yeah. And United have reacted to it. Those 3 players have now been suspended by the club pending an investigation. You'd imagine Simmo's going to comment it later today. We're recording early on Thursday. So Simmo's doing his pre-game press conference this afternoon, I do believe. So we won't know the full details, will we? Till then.
I don't think he'll say too much in public.
I think he might say, it'll be dealt with behind closed doors. But
I think it'll be one of those of being suspended. It'll be dealt with behind closed doors, and that's all I'm saying. I'm
going to be on this one. I think the club maybe have overreacted a little bit. I certainly think our fans have overreacted to this way too much. Yeah, it's a bit stupid, and you may say it's a bit disrespectful, but I mean, for God's sake, it's a joke, isn't it? At the end of the day,
the defeat should hurt them enough.
Yeah, exactly. The impression I get is that Simmo's basically done this to basically make them feel very small, and basically teach them lessons in humility and say, I'm not going to have any arrogance or cockiness like that. You've got to work hard to win these games. Don't expect you just going to turn up against a bunch of, a lower league team, a lower non-league team, thinking they're 50-year-olds. Well, they're not. A lot of them are quite young lads, not much older than you, and they've made you look a bit daft. Mostly they've made the first team players look daft. Because to be fair, actually, when you look at the lineups, only Fishburne started the game, and the other 2 didn't even go off the bench. So, that goes to show. And it's a frustrating one, isn't it? Especially for Fishburne. Fishburne just hasn't kicked on, has he, in recent months? And I know it's difficult for him. He's come back, and really, we should have got him out for another loan spell.
Yeah, I think as well, folk are forgetting he is essentially still a second-year YTS player. He's 18-year-old. So.
Yeah, but the worry is he getting a bit big for his boots, maybe is the best way to put it? And maybe this is Simmo's way of telling him almost, you've not made it yet,
few mentions of his car and that, wasn't there, online?
Yeah, and you know what, people have cars, whatever, it's fine, but at the end of the day, he's still only 18? Having a flash car like that, it's the impression it gives. I've no real problem with myself personally, but I think some of our fans have gone a bit over the top. Someone saying, get them out of the club, they'll be at Carlisle City next season and stuff like that. It's like, come on, give your head a shake. Like it's,
I doubt they'd be welcome at Carlisle City.
Probably not, to be fair, but there you go. But I mean, the point is, the reaction of some considering we've had players involved in fights on Botchagate earlier this season.
Yeah.
We've had players in recent seasons basically telling the fans to F off. Stuff like that. I mean, come on. The 2-week suspension is because they're young kids, and it's not like a serious, you're going to get sacked suspension, is it? I don't think, at least anyway. I think it's basically just this is a warning, behave yourselves in future sort of thing, isn't it, really? So hopefully they'll learn their lesson for this. That's the key thing. But yeah, not a night of glory for them, I think it's fair to say. Should we do loan updates before we talk about the Barrow game, Dan?
Yeah, go on then. Not much to talk about those.
There isn't, is there really? I mean, we'll talk about
unless you Taylor Charters.
Well, let's do Taylor Charters second because we can cover the other two pretty quickly. Tristan Abrahams, not a great week for Tristan and Grimsby. Firstly, a 0-0 draw against fellow playoff chasers Boreham Wood at the weekend, a game in which he actually failed to get off the bench. This was then followed up by a 2-1 home defeat to another fellow playoff chaser, Solihull Moors. On this occasion, Tristan did it off the bench in the 90th minute when I think Solihull had taken the lead on 89 minutes. So he's basically thrown on for a defender late on. Didn't work out, essentially. So not really a good week for him. Even worse week for Manny Mampala. They had no game at the weekend, Weymouth, because obviously the National League's imbalanced at the moment, isn't it? It's got an odd number of teams. The one team has a game off each week, and it was them. In midweek, the Terrors suffered another defeat, 2-0 at Woking, and Manny failed to get off the bench. I mean, the only other player on the bench who didn't come off was a goalkeeper. And I think that's been the case in the last few games, hasn't it? So, not good for him. So let's talk about the good story then, Dan. Taylor Charters. He's now made 13 appearances and scored 2 goals in his loan spell at the International Stadium. And it's another great week for him as Gateshead's march towards the National League North title continues, didn't it?
Mm.
Really good stuff. I mean, he played the full 90 minutes in both games. He played left back, actually. I think they've got an injury to their regular left back at the moment, haven't they? So Taylor has basically slotted in there. And he's played the full 90 minutes in both games. He must be doing pretty well. Mm. He'd got a 2-1 win at Boston United at the weekend, and they followed that up with a 4-0 home victory over Curzon Ashton in midweek. More on those two games in the X-Blues section, of course, though.
No surprise whose name will be mentioned there.
Yes, of course. It's a 2-horse race at the top, though, still, isn't it? Brackley Town just continue to match results.
Big game coming now, isn't there?
Oh, it's a huge one. Not this weekend, but the weekend after. Gateshead travel to Brackley. And Brackley are obviously 3 points behind with a game in hand at the moment. So I don't know when that game in hand is for them, whether it's midweek next week or not. If it is, then you potentially go into a game where they're level on points. Gateshead have got a lot better goal difference than them, haven't they? I think they're about good 10 or 15 higher. So, going really well for him there. There's a big question which we'll maybe touch on in the match review section about whether he stays there, though. That's the question, isn't it, at the moment? Simmo might have a decision to make on that one. Well, let's move on then, Dan. Match review. And here we go. Barrow 1, Carl United 2. County bragging rights remain at Brunton Park as United ran out 2-1 winners at Holker Street at the weekend, extending their run on the Furness Peninsula to 62 years. A little asterisk there. It's actually 10 games, but it sounds a lot better, 62 years, doesn't it? So yeah, once again, the Blues faced an opponent that, they played some all right football, but they were totally toothless. I've seen teams play worse football against us, but one of their strengths clearly was set pieces there, wasn't it? That was the key thing for them. And other than that, they looked absolutely toothless in attack. They had absolutely nothing. Solid defensive performance and some efficient attacking play secured the 3 points, and it's a result that leaves United, I think it's fair to say, not far off securing EFL football for next season. I think I saw John Coleman put an article up about the odds for relegation earlier today, I think it was, and we've gone from being, I think it was was it 4 or 5 to 1 on? Not on, so 4 to 5 to 1, the odds were on us going down. It's 90 to 1.
It ain't happening.
It's not happening now, is it? No, it's obviously not 100% there, and I'm sure Simmo wouldn't want them to take the foot off the gas. But, hey, we put ourselves in a hell of a good position, I think it's fair to say. Should we touch on the goals before we talk about the actual match day and the experience of going down, Dan? Sorry, first up, Jordan Gibson's goal. This sort of almost came out of nowhere, didn't it, this strike?
Yeah. Quick break.
Really quick break. I think Jordan nicked the ball, didn't he? Drove forward. He linked up with Patrick. I'm pretty sure Patrick got the pass away for him on this, but it's hard to tell on all the videos of the goal. It looks like Patrick just sort of lays it off into his path, doesn't he? Gets away onto I tell you what, for the position he was in, you'd never think to have a good strike, would you?
No, probably
not.
No.
Drives into sort of far it's sort of the corner of the box, isn't it, on the right wing? And from nowhere, he just thinks, I'm going to have a go. And we, from the angle where we were, and we'll talk about bad views at that ground soon, but it looked to us like he was putting a cross in, like a low cross for someone at the far post. But actually, he absolutely hammers it, and it bounces in front of Farmer and clips off the post and goes in.
It's a horrid bounce for the keeper. A horrid bounce.
It is a horrid one, isn't it? It's one of those ones you look back at and I do think maybe Farmer could do a little bit better, but it's really well hit. Really well hit. Horrible bounce in off the post. I think it's one of those ones Farmer will tell you himself probably, I should have done better on that. But it was strange because where we stood, obviously the view wasn't great. Again, we'll talk about that soon. But I saw the ball hit the post, but I didn't see it hit the back of the net from where I was. Whereas Matty stood next to me, didn't see it hit the post, but he did see the ball hit the back of the net. So together, we managed to see the goal. I had to actually go on Twitter and tweet someone to ask them to post the video of it because I couldn't see it, what had happened. But yeah, great goal. Put us into half-time, 1-0 up. Barrow came out a bit stronger start second half, but you always got this impression we could always hit them on the break. And that's what happened. But I mean, comedy defending this goal, wasn't it?
Yeah. Good awareness, though, from our man.
Brilliant. So, throw out from Howard to Simmo. He sent sort of almost a long, sort of hopeful, go and have a go at that sort of ball forward, didn't he? And it looked to me like the defender had it completely covered. It was Matty Platt, I think it was, wasn't it, for them? He looked like he had it totally covered, and he just got lazy with it. And Kristian Dennis, who we've said before, he's not the quickest, but, you know, he's smart, nipped in, and Paul Farmer at this point has started coming for it, but he never fully committed, did he? And he got caught in no man's land. Dennis nips in, and it's a weird kind of goal, because he just sort of flicks it, doesn't he? The impression I got from where we were stood alongside the pitch was he was trying to lob it over him, but failed. But actually, when you look at it, what he does, he just sort of cleverly side-foot it past him. I think it hits quite a strong divot, because it properly turns on a sixpence, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Starts, just basically slowly rolls into the net before the defender can get in, and it's 2-0. And absolute bedlam when that went in, wasn't it? It was mad. I think you were in that section, weren't you? Where
right up. Yeah.
Dennis basically ran over and go on.
I had my telescope to try and see through the plastic sheeting and scaffold and whatever else was in the way.
We will talk about that very soon, I promise. Kristian clearly meant a lot to him, that goal, didn't he? Jumps into the crowd and celebrates. And brilliant stuff. I mean, our good friend Nick Brown, who listens to the podcast, said he was almost snogging Simmo in the celebration. He was getting that excited about it. But there you go, brilliant stuff. Frustratingly, only held on to a 2-0 lead for 3 minutes. And Barrow were back in the game with to make it 2-1. As we said before, their biggest threat was set pieces, and not really surprised that was where the goal came from. Really good ball into the box. Howard sort of flapped at it a little bit, and there was Ollie Banks to sort of hammer it into the top. It was a really good finish, actually, to be fair. Because the angle, because when he hit it, I thought, bloody hell, he's done well to put that in the back of the net. And we see it actually on TV. It was a really good strike. But was it enough, was it, Dan? And I have to say, our game management late in the game was superb, wasn't it?
Yeah, they didn't even have much of a go, did they? No. They got that free kick right at the end, and you thought, oh, here we go, this is the moment. And he blazed it high and wide, and you're like,
oh, it's dreadful. Christ. It was absolutely dreadful. That was a real wasted chance, that, wasn't it? It's quite similar to the chance that we had against Oldham, wasn't it? Which Callum Guy set up for Feeney. And he just called it completely wrong. And there you go. So, finished 2-1. Jubilant celebrations in the, if you can call it that, away end at the end of the game. And all the 3 points go back up the A595. Let's talk about the ground then, Dan. We put it off long enough. I mean, let's talk about the day generally going down. It was a nice little trip down. You went on the train after us, didn't you? Me and Greg and Matty went down with Greg's wife, Kirsty, went down on the 908, I think it was, from Carlisle Station. Very busy train. pretty much standing room only by the time we got to Workington, and a few of us got on there. Unsurprisingly, a big queue for the toilet because people have been drinking a lot on what is a long journey down the coast, 2.5 hours. The train actually stopped at Sellafield. The police, fair play to them, actually said to the driver, can you stop here for 5 minutes so they can use the toilet? So there's not a huge queue on the train all the way down. And yeah, obviously we got in for about, I can't remember what time it was. It would have been about 11:30, I think it was. The police were trying basically to shepherd everybody to this nightclub called Nines. I think the way that the Car United police Twitter account tried to sort things the day before was a bit shambolic, wasn't it? I think it's fair to say. They were telling us...
They said that Wetherspoons was the pub for away fans.
I didn't even really say it was a pub for away fans. They just said... They more or less said you're free to go anywhere. We'd recommend the Wetherspoons. Then report emerged that Wetherspoons was packed with Barrow fans very early on Saturday. Police come down our train and tell us, you're not able to go to Wetherspoons now. You're all going to Nines. I'm like, well, what's that? We're on here for 2.5 hours. We want to get something to eat when we get there. Yeah. And we looked it up. It was a nightclub, basically, that was opening up early in the day to put us in. So yeah, we get to the station and the usual thing where the police were standing outside and they're only letting people who weren't going to the football out at first. And we basically said in our group before, so look, we want to get something to eat. We've been sat on a train for 2.5 hours. We haven't had anything to eat. We haven't been drinking. It's common sense, and we just about managed to get ourselves out of it. Everyone else was marched to Nines there, weren't they? I think you were marched on the next train as well.
Yeah, when our train came in, they basically rounded everybody up and said, right, you're going to Nines, and took us on a little tour of a back street of Barrow, and we ended up in what can only be described as a 90s nightclub.
Interesting place.
Very bizarre. It was busy. I'd say there was probably 150, 200 in it, And
it's great stuff for them, isn't it? A bit of extra money.
The bar staff were loving it and making easy money, People were on the drink, and it was very bizarre, though. Very, very bizarre. And then at 2 o'clock, we just emptied the pub and walked everyone to the ground. So it was nice, pleasant. They took us a long way around, up some back streets. And...
I'm sure they did. But yeah, it was a bit of an odd one. We managed to get some food and spoons. Wasn't the greatest. And then we actually ended up in the Duke of Edinburgh after that because Nick, again, getting his second mention on this week's pod, he'll be enjoying that. He just messaged me and said, come to the Duke of Edinburgh. It's spot on in it. And we couldn't actually get there before the game because there was a load of Barrow fans outside it and police outside it, so we weren't able to go in. But yeah, lovely little pub, actually, the Duke of Edinburgh. I'd recommend it if you ever go into Barrow for any reason. God knows what that would be. But yeah, obviously then we walked down to the ground, and me and you've been to Holker Street before, haven't we? Many years ago for friendly games.
I actually looked it up. It was 2003 was the last time I went to Holker
the last time
Street.
you went? Wow.
Yeah.
I think I went either the summer of either 2014 or 2015, one of the two.
I think I've been 6 times, and 2003 was the last time.
Wow, that is a long time.
Yeah. It hasn't changed in those years.
No, it hasn't changed much at all, has it? But the Holker Street end behind the goal, has it changed for the better though? That's the question, Dan. I'm genuinely baffled how that ground has been. I know they've reduced the standards that you need to be an EFL ground these days, haven't they? They've reduced it down to try and encourage more teams to get into the league. But how on earth is that a Football League ground?
I think what they should have done with that ground was built a small stand on the side. I think the problem they probably faced there was the sight lines, because it's an elevated main stand, their small main stand, and just bolting it into the middle of the terrace just doesn't work at all. It was, I had friends who were in it. They said it was all right, but even they couldn't see, because on the segregation bit, apart from the normal fence, they've got all sort of plastic sheeting, because apparently there was a missile exchange with some fans at a game. So it's...
Well, you can put netting there. You don't have to put sheets there, do you?
Well, yeah.
Logic, isn't it? I mean, there was some netting there. There was a sheet. There's some scaffolding. There's all kinds there. You literally, you wouldn't have been able to see the ball coming in for Dennis's goal, would you, in the section you were in?
I could very, very slightly towards the end, and that was it.
That tells you all you need to know, doesn't it? And like I said, every time the ball when we were kicking towards the other end, the dressing rooms end.
Yeah.
When it went down to the right wing to that corner flag, we couldn't see a thing. We had no idea what was going on because we were on that little bit on the side of the pitch just before you got to the seating main stand for Barrow. And the problem is the seating main stand for the Barrow, it's elevated, but it's also closer to the pitch than the stand that we were in. So you couldn't see anything along that touchline in the other half, basically. It was farcical. And as well as that, if you could only really see anything if you were stood at the front. And obviously by the time we got him at about 2:45, everyone was already stood there, so we had to stand back a little bit. So we saw next to nothing of the game. It's one of those ones where I do wonder if I'll bothered next season if they're still in the league, if it's still like that, because it was just appalling. You could not see a thing. The facilities wise, the toilets weren't too bad actually. They set up their little porta.
Yeah, the toilets were quite good once you could get to them. Yeah. It was hard work pushing through to get to them.
Yeah, and then you had a bar there as well on the top bit, which I think that was
a lot of people didn't even realise there was a food and drink area at the back corner.
A lot of people, Abid didn't realise as well. And you almost wondered, what's the point of it? Because actually what you're doing is taking away standing space there, really.
The actual cabin was well run, and the young lad on the till, and I assume it was his dad. They were very quick and organised, but there wasn't much space because I got a pie and a pint just before the match, and a bottle of pop for during it, and a fair queue, but they were getting through it, so fair play to them there.
Yeah, and then obviously at the end, if you wanted to exit, you couldn't go back through the turnstiles we came in that bit. You had to go up and over the actual terracing, down onto Holker Street. The setup there was just poor. I mean, apparently they're going to be knocking down that section. Apparently, at least the side bit, I think, in the summer. I think they're putting more seating in, basically, because the Football League regulations mean you actually need more seating than they've got. And you're given time to sort that out. I think, because I was looking on TV, actually, Sutton, I think it was their game against Tranmere. I've noticed that the terrace behind the goal, they've knocked down half of that now. Yeah,
they're already cracking on with sorting it,
Yeah, fair play. But yeah, so it was a farce, really, wasn't it? The whole setup there, really, and not helped much by the stewards either, who were not particularly helpful in the way they treated some fans. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, the ones where I was weren't too bad.
Yeah,
they were all right, but there clearly was some who were down the front who were a bit power hungry. There was one last. I think it was when we scored the first. Everyone's jumping about. You could see you pushing folk, and I'm like, they're not doing anything. You're clearly power crazy.
Yeah,
I think they'd been drafted in from away. Some of them.
Well, it's interesting. I was looking on the Barrow forum and looking at some of their comments on Twitter. I think the person who runs their security on their match days is not a popular bloke by all accounts. And there was a statement, wasn't there, from Barrow actually a couple of days after the game, basically apologising to the fans for what had happened at the game and some of the issues that they'd faced. So clearly there was problems in the home end as well.
There was something about under 18s not being allowed behind the goal or something unless they had ID. But when we looked across, there was plenty of under 18s in there.
Yeah, packed with kids. It was a strange one, that one, wasn't it? But there you go. So yeah, it's good day out in the sense of the result. In terms of if you wanted to actually watch a game of football, absolutely appalling. Like I said, I think I probably saw about 2/3 of the pitch for most of the games, so just goes to show you. Before we talk about bits to do with the players, Dan, actually, talk about the atmosphere as well. Another brilliant show of support from the Blue Army at the weekend, really getting behind the team for the full 90 minutes. It's that feel-good factor. It's something the club have got to really grab onto, isn't it?
Yeah, we only got 612 tickets. There were several in the home end. I know several who were in.
Well, you know what, funny, before you go any further there, after the second goal, there was a guy who got chucked out from the home end, and he was getting dragged in front of us, and he had glasses and like a hoodie sort of zip-up top on, and he was getting dogsy abuse from our fans, and he quickly zipped down his jacket to say, "Look, I'm a Carlisle," and he'd got chucked out the home end. Like, I'm one of you, I'm one of you. Yeah. But no, sorry, you were saying there, Dan.
Yeah, no, we only got 612. We sold out. we could quite easily have took over 3 times as many if we got the tickets. Especially, we took 1,100 to Oldham. We'd have took 2,000 to even though Rochdale's Tuesday night, I still think we'll have a good following. It wouldn't surprise me if there's 1,000.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. You can't make that one, unfortunately, can you? Because of work.
No, I'm working. Yeah.
Sadly. Well, there you go. Well, let's talk about some of the sort of play-related stuff then, Dan. I mean, the first one to talk about is as you mentioned before, like the injury to Callum Guy. Real big blow, this, wasn't it? It was only 18 minutes into the game. It's a weird one because he sort of just stretched for the ball, didn't he? And he looked like he just jarred his knee, as he did, didn't he? And he won the tackle. But straight away, he didn't get up from the tackle, did he? And you could see he was in a bit of bother.
Yeah.
Got a bit of treatment, tried to play on, and he just couldn't do it, could he?
There was a worrying picture on his social media on Sunday. He had a knee brace on. I mean, I'm assuming that was just precautionary so you don't do any further damage.
Yeah.
Because they probably had him booked in for a scan on Monday. But
I'm sure we'll find out from Simmo, won't we?
Yeah, well, like we said, we'll find out tonight, probably after we've recorded. But I'll be very surprised if we see him in the next couple of games.
At the very least, certainly. Does leave a bit of a dilemma for Simmo, though, doesn't it?
Mm.
Who do you replace him with? Obviously, on the day, he brought Corey Whelan on. He did a solid job in that game. I mean, it's one of those things you look at it and you think to yourself, thank God we've got all these points the last few games because the midfield's been decimated in that time, hasn't it? I mean, Brendan Dickinson did an okay job in midfield, but actually looked a lot better when he moved to left wing back to replace Jack Armolator when Danny Devine came onto the pitch. So what do you do? Do you go with Gibson, Devine and Whelan in there and maybe put Dickinson left wing back and put Armour onto the bench? Or do you go with maybe one of them for Guy and just go with Dickinson, Gibson and one of it? I mean, as you mentioned before, do you recall Taylor Charters from his loan spell?
Yeah.
Tough choice.
Decisions.
What would you do in that situation?
I don't know, because I don't like the idea of Dickinson and Gibson in the midfield three.
I'm the same as you. I could just about tolerate for a couple of games, but if for the remaining, 9 games, whatever. Yeah,
you're probably looking at Whelan and Devine, aren't you, alongside Gibson? I would say.
Yeah, the problem with that is it's a very workman-like pairing, isn't it, Devine and Whelan? It's not quite as dynamic as Guy can be quite dynamic. He can spread the ball out. Spread play a lot, can't he? I suppose it might give Gibson a little bit more freedom to get forward and do stuff.
It'd be a big chance for Devine.
He certainly would.
He's only ever been bit part, really, hasn't he?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not convinced by Whelan as a midfielder anyway. I think it's just he does a job there, but certainly don't see that as his long-term position at the moment. Like I said, do you bring Charles back? I'm torn on this one because I think. Yeah, get him back and get him playing a few games, but then I'd rather maybe play the full 90 minutes at Gateshead and just got a good run of games there under his belt first. Because obviously he's out of contract at the end of the season. I can't remember if he's got a trigger clause or not, but
I don't think he has.
No, but I don't think he has either. So it's a tough one, isn't it? What are you doing? It's one of those ones. Maybe you wait for get the next 2 games out of the way, and then maybe you go, okay, let's bring Charles back now. Be tough on Gateshead, but we've done him a decent favour letting him stay there, and that I suppose. But but yeah, there you go. So yeah, a bit of gut to see Callum getting injured, but hopefully not out for too long. He generally recovers very quickly for injuries, though, doesn't he? He gets these little knocks all the time, but hopefully that's just one of those. Let's talk about the big man at the back, Denel Simmo. Just gets better and better every game, doesn't it? I've got to put my hands up and apologise. I was completely wrong at the start. I wouldn't say I wrote him off, but I said, for a player they paid that much for, he did not look up to it, and he was really struggling to get up to speed. And I was wrong. Long term, he looks a really good player, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's he seems to be loving it here, doesn't he? There was a great photo doing the rounds of him celebrating, and he's all over it on his social media. So. Carry on.
Well, you say he's all over his social media. He needs to get that profile picture changed. Get one with you in a Carlisle shed, Denel. Come on. That's all we want to see before the end of the season. But yeah, no, the passion he shows is really impressive, isn't it? He's someone who he's not come here just to, get a few games under his belt and not really bothered about what happens, is he? He really cares, and he's really shown that in his games, and his work rate's fantastic, and like you said, the passion he showed at full time. You know, he really G's up the crowd. He really wants them to get behind us, doesn't he? So fantastic to see. I can't see us getting him on loan again next season. Can you at this rate? I think Southampton will be looking at League One probably, won't they?
Not a player they've paid $1.5 million for, no.
No. I think one of those ones, isn't it? Maybe if he'd not done quite as well, we might have actually had a chance. But the way he's improved, I don't really think there's much hope in us getting him back for next season. Our big man, Kristian Dennis, finally got his reward, didn't he?
Yeah, well deserved. Well deserved.
I mean, Simmo was very complimentary about it, wasn't he?
Whisper it quietly. The shades of Ian Stevens in him.
Do you know what? I was literally just about to say that to me. He's got that about him. Steve-O was never the quickest.
Whisper it quietly.
But actually, what Steve-O was good, he was very quick in his head over a few yards, wasn't he? He knew when to make a quick move and then get onto the ball.
Oh,
that goal he scored was very Stevens-esque, just nip it in, beat the thing in. It's not like a clean finish, is it? It's just that I'm putting it where it'll go in the net. And you're absolutely right. He's a similar age to Stevens when we had him as well. So I genuinely think, I know dirty talk, but top scorer of League Two next season? Yeah, maybe. I have to see who else we signed, to be fair, as well. But no, he's been fantastic since he come in. His work rate's superb. He clearly meant so much to him getting that goal, didn't it? And I'm pretty sure if Simmo does stay, he's the kind of player he wants to build an attack around, isn't he, really? Someone like him who can really lead the line and be the main man in there.
Sam Fishburne could learn a lot from him, I think.
Oh, absolutely. I think definitely could. Maybe learn how to lock your social medias, because I think Kristian doesn't actually use most of it, does he? I'm going to give a little shout to Jordan Gibson. I think we sort of mentioned in recent weeks, he's not been quite up to the standards he set early on when he first joined, has he?
I think he said as much himself, didn't he? You know,
he did. Yeah, particularly
he was disappointed with the Newport game, wasn't he?
Well, Simmo said, didn't he? He sat him down on Wednesday morning, I think it was, and all afternoon, and made him watch the mistakes and stuff he'd made in the Newport game. And apparently, I think he said something like, "Oh God, that's not good, is it?" And I was like, "No." And I've had to watch that twice. Once on Tuesday night during the game, and again this morning.
Yeah.
So, but no, he said to him, like, he just wanted to show him, the stuff he's got to work on, and he's playing in a slightly different position to what he's been used to playing. He's pretty much playing as a central midfielder at the moment. He's not even playing just behind the front two, is he? And his work rate is great. And one thing I'd say about him is he never shies from asking for the ball, does he? He always wants it, and he always goes looking for it.
He's involved in key moments. His penalty against Northampton, the goal on Saturday.
Yeah.
It shows you can still get the rewards when it's not going all your way.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, he's one I think could really be a key player for us next season, I think. And another one you want to almost build your team around, don't you? You want him to be part of your spine, really, if he can perform well week in, week out. What else have we got to talk about? We'll talk about the team managers. I mean, poor old Mark Cooper, eh?
Look here.
The Dums. I couldn't believe his post-match interview. Could you? Do you know what he said? He essentially said, well, at half-time we came in, we told them they need to run around more. Run around a bit or something like that, wasn't it? It's like
he'd clearly lost the team, hadn't he?
Yeah. There's a few rumours about him basically slacking off and what he wanted to do, and he was
I don't think he's been happy with the setup of Barrow for a long time either. I think it's worked both ways. The training down in Manchester area, and apparently it's not the best.
Well, apparently there's an issue with that in the sense that, by all accounts, the Barrow players didn't get how big a game it was. They didn't really understand how much it meant to especially the young fans at Barrow. It means a lot more to them than the older Barrow fans. But to them, they didn't grasp it, whereas we had Simmo, Skelton, Jeff Hart, people like that, constantly in the players' ears about the fact that you need to get a result against these lot of the weekend.
Jamie Devitt will have said as well, exactly, he understands it. And
exactly, and he was there at the game, wasn't he, as well, which is great to see. Even though he's injured, he went along, and that's the reason I think that he really, things like that, he just didn't really grasp it, did he? I think, and you do wonder if they have to get to the point soon, Barrow, where they have to go, well, let's start looking actually getting the team training near Barrow or something like that, because I kind of get why they do it. The Manchester thing,
but then they're going to struggle getting players, aren't they?
Possibly. But then you need players who maybe grasp the club a little bit more as well.
But, yeah.
Tough position they're in. Well, let's talk less about him then. Let's talk about our man, Simmo. 5 wins out of 6. It's just genius, isn't it? I just can't underestimate what an incredible job he's done since coming in. Really, just to turn around a team that looked hopeless into one it's only lost one game very narrowly, a game they could have got a point from, really, potentially at the end. And
I think if we played another 10 minutes, we might well have,
against Newport, yeah, definitely. And I just feel like the club really needs to seize this opportunity right now. And I know Simmo said, I'm not going to make a decision on my future until the end of the season. I'm sure behind the scenes he'd be happy to look at stuff soon, because things have gone way better than we expected.
The big danger is Derby County going down.
Yeah, I suppose that's one way you're looking at it. You think Derby...
If we go down, is Rooney still going to be there? Unlikely. It's on his doorstep. He's liked at the club already.
Yeah, that's where the challenge is. That's why you want to get him tied down quickly before any of that happens. I've heard whispers that he's fairly keen on the idea, so he obviously wants things to improve at the club. He's got very high standards, so hopefully he can sort them out. And I know a lot of people say, the ownership thing will need to be sorted.
He gets it, doesn't he, basically?
I don't think the ownership thing's as big an issue for Simmo as everyone's making out to be, because he gets on well with Nixon and Jenkins, and
as long as he gets the tools he needs, he'd be happy, I think.
Yeah. I think people massively overestimate that being an issue, really. So interesting to see whether anything develops on that in the following weeks. But I mean, surely the owners can see the buzz. I'm sure Nigel Clippins, who we know occasionally listens to the podcast, will know that
occasionally he should be listening every week.
He should be. I'm sure he'll grasp that this is a big opportunity for us there, because if you get him tied down, you're probably putting an extra 400 or 500 on your season ticket sales for next season straight away.
Yeah,
there's the buzz that people will have. So let's hope that gets sorted. But overall, good weekend in terms of the result. Can't really grumble at all, can you? And put ourselves within touch of safety now, haven't we, Dan? I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
Definitely. Right, let's take a short break and then we'll be back with the second half of the show.
This is John Mellish. You listen to the Brunton Bugle.
And the big daddy himself there, John Mellish, became a dad this week, didn't he, John?
Yeah, congratulations to John and his partner.
Yeah, fantastic news. Little Oakley arrived on Wednesday morning, I think it was. It arrived. Well, it was announced then at least anyway. So great news for John. And we will be backing him for first goal scorer this weekend, I think it's fair to say. Hopefully the Bebeto celebration will be brought out as well, as is tradition on that sort of occasion. So there you go. Just to remind everyone, obviously, as usual, you can subscribe to the podcast via all good podcast apps, whether that's Apple, Spotify, Google Podcast, or Acast, which is the supplier that we use actually to host the podcast. On those apps, quite a few of them, you can review the podcast as well. If you can give us a 5-star review, that would be amazing. We've had some brilliant reviews so far. Really, really great to see. Social media, you can follow us at Brunton Bugle on Twitter. We're on Facebook. Just click like on the Brunton Bugle page if you search for that. And we also are on the Be Just and Fear Not Facebook group, posting there regularly, and on the Cumbrians.net message board. And you can contact us in the old-fashioned way to bruntonbugle@gmail.com as well via email. Had an email in from this week actually asking about whether we're doing player interviews and things like that and extra features. Well, we are looking to get them secured, a few of them for the summer, aren't we, Dan? I think we're going to get a few in the bag.
We've got a few ideas in the pipeline. And
yeah. Because over the summer, I'm getting married in the summer, so there'll be probably a 3-week period where I definitely won't be able to do much, particularly in pre-season. So we may have to get a few little bits to fill the time in between that, won't we, Dan? I think it's fair to say. Because for those who don't know, not only do we record this, I'm the one who puts it all together. So I think when I'm away, basically, the podcast closes down.
I just log on and chat shit, basically.
Exactly that. But there you go. Reminder, our sponsor for this season, for the second half of the show, is the Cal United Sports Club London branch. London branch is open to all Cal United fans. They've got members from Cornwall to Dundee and Houston to Singapore, and of course, every part of London and the South East. They regularly meet up on away trips, as well as arranging many social events. supporters games and fundraising for the club. They'll be providing us with information for the away games as part of the preview section this season 2. You can find out more about London Branch at their website, carlisle.londonbranch.org. They've not sent me the away pub for Rochdale, but I'm 99% certain it'll be the Cemetery Inn, because that's the away pub that everybody goes to at Rochdale. Yeah. So just take it as given. The Cemetery Inn is the meeting pub for this game. The supporters bar next to the ground actually is a belting little club as well, actually, isn't it? So if you're just getting in later and you haven't got time to get to the Cemetery Inn, which is actually is further away from Scotland than you think. I used to think it was really close, but it's up quite a big hill. But yeah, if there's a supporters bar right next to the ground as well, so that's a great place to go. Okay, Dan, so Mike, as usual, is sent us a question because he's not able to record. So it's been a while since we had Mike on, actually, isn't it? It's just
I know. Well, I'm on holiday in a couple of weeks, so he'll have to sort his work out.
We'll definitely have to do that one because he's going to that game and I'm not. So we need him to do the preview and he'll have to do the review episode the week after as well, I think. So we'll work him hard that week, I think it's fair to say. But yeah, as usual, Mike has sent in his question for this week's game. So I don't know which one it is, whether it's Rochdale or Bristol Rovers. We'll have to wait and see. But here's Mike's question for this week.
So for an extremely tenuous segue into this week's question, Joey Barton is no stranger to Brunton Park, having broke his foot on the hallowed turf in a pre-season friendly in 2007 while playing for Newcastle. Now, it was a 1-1 draw. Who were the goal scorers in this game for each team? And also, we had a former Newcastle player playing for us in that game, and he also used to play for Bristol Rovers. Who is he?
Oh. So what year was it again, did he say? 2007 was it?
2007 it was, yeah.
Okay, I think I know. I know the former Newcastle and Carlisle player, Bristol Rovers. Sorry, Newcastle Bristol Rovers player playing for us that day. I'm pretty sure I know that. And I think I know the goal scorers, but I'm going to keep quiet on that. We'll do it later on, just before we do the X-File section. But you think you know them as well, don't you?
Yeah.
You've got them, so there you go. Interesting question. Nice little segue there from Mike. Right, the Behind Enemy Lines will come later on because we're doing Rochdale this week, so we'll go straight into the Bristol Rovers preview section. We face Rovers this weekend at Brunton Park. Referee for this game is Andy Haynes from Tyne and Wear. It's his 15th season as an EFL referee. He's taken
he's a regular, isn't he?
Yeah, he comes over like 2 or 3 times a season usually. It's actually only the second time he's been this season though, so it's an interesting one. He's taken charge of 29 games so far this season, handing out 76 yellow cards and 1 red card. So he's not that card happy, is he, compared against some of the others we've had this season. He last took charge of United for a game in January. It was Keith Millen's last win in charge of the Blues, the 2-0 victory over Bradford City. There you go. Interesting one. Not actually that long ago already, is it? Head-to-head wise, it's the 38th meeting between the two sides, with United winning 13, Rovers winning 15, and 9 games ending in a draw. Last season, Rovers finished rock bottom of League One. Had a miserable season, didn't they? I think they had 3 different managers across the season. Was it Ben Garner, who's now in charge of Swindon Town, Paul Tisdale, who's just left Stevenage, and obviously then Joey Barton took over in the February. So yeah, not a great season for them last season. This season, doing a lot better though, aren't they? Especially of late. They're currently in 4th on 63 points from 38 games. They're 14 positions.
They've had a proper turnaround, haven't they?
Yeah, 14 positions and 20 points ahead of United, having played 1 game more. Their manager, Joey Barton, appointed in February 2021. He's got a contract until this next summer, I think. I'm not seeing anything to suggest it's been extended, but I'm guessing he probably won't be far off getting extended soon. He's only previously managed Fleetwood Town. Is it probably fair to say he wasn't the shy or retiring type as a player, Dan? And not much has changed since he's moved into management. He's certainly opinionated, to say the least. He actually, you know what, for all some people Mickey take, he did actually quite a solid job at Fleetwood, didn't he? I can't remember if he actually made the playoffs with them or not. I think he did one season. But, he did a fairly solid job over 3 years there. And
I don't honestly think Fleetwood can go much higher.
I think they'd hit the glass ceiling. I think that's the reason he left, wasn't it? It wasn't a case of, he'd fallen out with them or anything like that. I think he reached the point where he was like, actually, I can't actually take this any further. And I think the owner has cut back quite a bit on the amount he's funding them, hasn't he? I think they're being a bit more careful with the cash of late. But yeah, he left them in early 2021. Then he took over the Memorial Stadium not long after. He's turned around a position that saw, I think it's fair to say his job was a little bit in danger back in autumn, wasn't it? When we faced them down at the Memorial Stadium, there was sort of some talk of Beach or Barton. Either of these two could potentially end up leaving after this game. And obviously it was Beach was the one who left. We lost 3-0. And since then, they've just kicked on a little bit, haven't they? And especially in the new year, they've really picked up form. And now they look in a good position to finish in the top 3, don't they? The way things are going. He's had plenty of controversies since becoming a manager. Just to pick out a few here, he was cleared of assault on the Barnsley manager while he was in charge at Fleetwood. He made a Holocaust reference in a post-match interview while in charge of Rovers. And he's also been very public in his criticism of the previous 2 managers at Rovers, particularly of Ben Garner, which he did before their game against Swindon earlier in the season, which they went on to lose 3-1. Basically telling him he would quite happily spend half an hour with him talking about the basics of management, apparently. I know they're ahead of Swindon now, but it's just sometimes you think to yourself, just shut your mouth for a bit, for God's sake. No one really cares that much, do they?
Yeah.
But there you go. So, there's other things away from the field that we won't talk about right now.
One's actually ongoing at the moment, isn't it? So
we'll leave that. But I'm sure he'll get a warm welcome from the paddock at the weekend, won't he, Dan?
Yeah.
Particularly if we take the lead.
He's the sort who'll love it.
Yeah. Oh, you will. And you know what? He's shown himself to be a fairly decent manager, hasn't he, by the looks of things? I mean, at Rovers, he's got probably got a bit of funding there, hasn't he? Because he's got quite a few experienced heads who aren't going to be cheap in that team, and they've got a big squad. But still, you've got to do it on the pitch, haven't you? So, fair play. Last time out, big win for them, this, wasn't it? Against Northampton Town.
Very big.
Because Northampton are just ahead of them in the league. And it was a 1-0 win thanks to a first-minute goal by Harry Anderson, and they held on for the rest of the game and didn't make a single sub either. They do say that sometimes, don't they, managers, that sometimes actually making a sub for the sake of it, there's no point. If the players are not looking tired, sticking with the team you got out there can work better than making a change. A second goal would have been handy for them, though, because it would have actually put them up to 3rd place. Because I think it's Northampton are just ahead of them, aren't they, in the table, I think, right now, if I remember rightly. And they've got 1 better goal difference on the same number of points. So... bit frustrating, I suppose, for them that they couldn't get that other goal, but I'm sure they'll be looking this weekend to try and beat the Blues and get ahead of them. And it's a proper clash of the 2 form teams in the division, isn't it, Dan?
It certainly is. It's 1v2, isn't it, I think?
Yeah, we're in the last 6 games form table, they're first and we're second. Their record is 1 lost and then 4 wins. And ours is, 1
wins, lost
1. So it's the opposite way around.
Yeah.
They've won 8 of their last 10, and those other 2 games were a draw and a defeat. Their only defeat in the last 6 games was against Newport. And who was United's defeat in the last 6 games against? Newport, who are 3rd in the form table, actually. So there you go. Quick look through their squad, Dan. We said there before, there's some experienced names in there, isn't there, that really stand out? Who do you pick out?
And do you know who I'm going to pick out? He's actually on loan from Newcastle, Elliot Anderson. He's on fire at the moment. And
he's flying, isn't he?
Just before we were recording, apparently he's played under 19 for England.
Yes, I saw this, yeah.
But under 21 for Scotland, and England are trying to nab him back. So there's a bit of a pull for his services from England and Scotland at the moment. I think he's only in the Scottish on grandmother, which I think's a level too high personally for international. But so no, Elliot Anderson has certainly been on form the last few games.
He scored a few great goals with him, wasn't he? And it's one of those frustrating ones. You think if we were doing well, it's the kind of play we could have maybe got across the old.
It's annoying because of a waster like Sorensen, who just wasn't arsed when he was here.
Yeah.
Newcastle have obviously fell out with us. Well, it's surely Amiobi who runs their loans, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it might not be a case of they've fallen out with us. They might just look and think, well, Bristol Rovers are in a much better position and they're going to get better chances.
But no, I mean, Elliot Anderson's gone from Newcastle to Bristol. Tom White's the one for Hartlepool, isn't it? No, not Tom White. What's his name?
You're going to Joe White.
Joe White, yeah, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, Tom White's at Barrow, isn't he?
Yeah.
But no, it's annoying when you see, clubs that we should be taking players off, but it is what it is.
Yep, well, hopefully Simmo can stay on and sort out some of those relationships, hopefully, over the summer.
He worked in Newcastle for a bit as well,
didn't he? You'd hope so, wouldn't you? Just looking at the squad, James Connolly from Cardiff City, I think, is one who's done really well there as well. Obviously, Nick Anderton is the link in there as an ex-Blue, isn't he? And he seems to be doing... He seems to have got his way back into the team, because I think he lost his place, didn't he, for a while, and he's started most of the recent games, from what I can say.
Ex-Lawney Ryan Loft up front.
Yeah, well, funny enough, they signed him, they paid money for him in January, didn't they? And he started
basically
okay.
Relegated Scunthorpe by signing him.
Yeah, well, he started okay, but I think he's been on the bench for a lot of recent games. He's not really been getting any chances. I mean,
he won't want to change a winning team, though, will he? So.
Yeah, they got big Aaron Collins up front, haven't they? They signed from Forest Green Rovers, who's a player actually I really like. I'm really impressed with him when he played against us earlier in the season. Harvey Saunders is one that we reckon we should have targeted in the summer, but obviously
I think there was a whisper we might have looked at Saunders, but
I'm guessing he's worked under Barn before, and so that might
worked for him at Fleetwood, so it was never going to happen, was it?
As did Paul Coots as well, who's a player with plenty of experience. FA Cup semi-finalist with Sheffield United, wasn't he? I think back in the day, alongside Stefan Skugel of all people, and obviously Glenn Whelan. I mean, God, he's got so many games under his bag, hasn't he? So he's one that's always going to offer a bit of experience in there. I don't think he's been involved too much lately. I'm just looking at the last lineup. He didn't actually play at the weekend, did he? So I'm not sure if Whelan's heavily involved or not. So as we mentioned there, they're on an incredible run, taking themselves from mid-table to on the verge of a top 3 place. I mean, the top of the table in League 2, though, is incredible at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, take away Forest Green, who finally got back to winning ways on Monday. And it's, there's any two from about 8 teams could go up with them,
I mean, I'm just looking at the table now. I mean, from Exeter in second are on 65 points, down to Mansfield in 10th on 59. Mansfield have got 2 games in hand on Exeter. And Exeter have got a game in hand on most of them. So, any of those teams could finish in the top 3. Which is phenomenal, isn't it? I mean, you can even go as far as probably saying Salford actually still got a chance of the playoffs. I mean, they're a little bit behind, but they're on a good run of form as well. They've not lost in a while.
Yeah.
So you never know. You never know, really, with it. And I imagine a lot of those teams are going to be playing each other as well, so there'll be points dropped all over the place. And yeah, I mean, Tranmere looked like they'd really dropped out recently, and suddenly they've picked up form again. And then Mansfield dropped off, and they've picked up form. And it's just a proper seesaw, isn't it, at the top there?
Do you know the best of it?
Yeah.
Most of these clubs have still to play Barrow.
You're desperate for that win on that bet, aren't you? That's what you're desperate for. Only a little thing about Bristol Rovers I've picked out down. Their owner, Wael Al-Qadi, he celebrated 6 years at the helm with an open letter to fans recently. He gave them updates on infrastructure improvements, investment in the youth, etc. I think they've just sort of set up a new training ground base, which they're really developing.
An owner speaking to fans, what a novel idea.
Yeah, I mean, I say in fairness, I'm trying to be fair here, but we've got Nigel Clibbins who does a lot of that, isn't he? Basically on behalf of them, essentially, and he gives very regular updates to us. But yeah, I think they've got ongoing issues with trying to find a new ground, haven't they? I think they were looking at one right on the edge of Bristol at the University of the Southwest or West of England, I think it is, or something like that. So I think they're looking to hopefully sort something in the near future for that. So there you go. Let's talk about that about United ahead of this game. Injury wise, obviously, it looks like Callum Guile probably missed this game. We're not 100% yet, but it doesn't seem likely that he's going to feature. Long-term injuries to Jamie Devitt, Kelvin Mellor and Joel Senior. Gimme Toure played a good hour against Carlisle City in midweek, but by all accounts was a bit rusty. Maybe a little bit too soon. Maybe he'll come onto the bench. I don't know.
I was saying there's maybe space on the bench with the injuries, but I wouldn't be looking at him to.
Well, when you look at it, obviously, Guy's going to come out potentially, which means one player will come in, which frees the space on the bench.
Yeah.
You've basically got Toure, Windsor, who just completely dropped off the radar and didn't do much in midweek, and Roberts again, who didn't do much in midweek. probably fighting for that place, haven't you?
And Dixon.
Again, Dixon didn't do much, did he? So you do wonder with Toure setting up the goal and offering something a bit different.
I think you would probably put Windsor above.
Probably, but I mean, personally, I'd probably like to see Toure get a run in there because he's unpredictable and he offers something a bit different. And he's one of our own players for the next couple of months at least. But there you go. What would you change in midfield then, Dan? We discussed this in the preview section. How would you change it? Would you change formation maybe, or?
I'd say you're probably looking at Divine in for Guy, I think. Yeah.
Maybe drop Armour for Whelan and put Dickinson on left wing back to change things a little bit there.
Apparently Jack Armour had been feeling slightly unwell prior to Barrow.
Oh, well, that might be it then, yeah.
Maybe why he didn't last as long. I would imagine that's cleared up. I don't think there'll be too much change, No. Guy's the obvious one.
Mm-hmm. Well, your back three probably stays the same as it is. As tempting as it would be.
Back five does really, doesn't it?
Yeah. Like I said, the only one where you maybe change it is Armour for Dickinson, but even then...
I think Divine comes in for Guy.
Yeah. I think that's the likely outcome, isn't it? Probably for that one, but there you go. Okay, so we'll do the predictions at the end once we've done the Rochdale bit. Which brings us on nicely, Dan, to the Rochdale game and the Behind Enemy Lines section. So this week we spoke to Chaff from the RochdaleAFC.com podcast. What do we talk about? Well, basically, just what a mess it is off the pitch at the moment, Rochdale, with this EFL charge relating to the attempted takeover last year, which the fans thwarted. And they're probably the ones who are going to get punished now for it, which is incredible, really, isn't it? Because the people running it now are, by all accounts, very decent people. In fact, I've met some of them, really, really good people. And it's really hard for Rochdale, isn't it? But I suppose the main aim for them is staying up and then hopefully avoiding a points deduction. But yeah, so we were going to chat about all those kinds of things and had a big game next week. So here's the chat I had with Chaff. Chaff, Rochdale are back in League One for the first time in 7 seasons this year. And while things on the pitch have been, I think you'd probably say, solid, if not spectacular, off the pitch, it's all been going off, hasn't it, for the last 12 months or so. It's been quite a crazy time for Rochdale, especially as a club that a lot of fans always looked at as being a club that was really well run for like a small community club. It all seems to have gone a bit belly up, but then sort of all be recovered by your fans' trust. Can you give our fans as brief an overview as possible? I know it's going to be difficult because it's quite a long story as to what's actually happened in the last 12 months or so.
Yeah, how do you put it into a nutshell? So basically, last summer we were subject to a hostile takeover by a group called Morton House, led by Andy Curran, who had dealings with Southend. Yeah. And obviously they're not a football club you aspire to be off the pitch. And we thought we'd fought off this hostile takeover. But there's a big court case going on now where Morton House believe that they've been wronged. A lot of money has changed hands for shares, but these shares have never been properly transferred over. So Morton House seems to be an awful lot of money out of pocket. But it just seems that they want to claw back as much as they can. So it's just been an absolute mess, to be perfectly honest with you. It's not something that I've ever gone through watching Rochdale. Yeah. We now have Matt Southall involved, and the name itself should sort of put fear into everybody who knows about the situation down at Charlton. Yeah. And it all stems from club employees, former board members, trying to get in bed with these people and bring them into the football club, and they're no longer with us, thankfully, but the damage that they have caused seems to be going on and on. So at the minute we're battling to raise money for this big court case, to try and finally put an end to the hostile takeover.
I mean, your supporters trust have done an incredible job there, haven't they? Last summer, I remember we talked to, I think it was Dean we talked to earlier this season, wasn't it? And he said, you know, you had people driving around speaking to, you know, minor shareholders and trying to convince them not to sell their shares and things like that. And it shows the real, it is a real community club, Rochdale, isn't it, in that sense?
I've never seen anything like it, if I'm honest. It's remarkable. It really is. The lengths that the supporters trust, even people not in the supporters trust. There's like a group of they're a little bit hidden. A group of saviours that have all sort of put their abilities into it there and done a really, really good job. They went, like you said, they went around getting details of minor shareholders and sort of asking them not to sell their shares. I believe that the furthest one that we went and visited was in the Isle of Arran, which is it's not just around the corner. Yeah. So the efforts that have gone in from an awful lot of people, spearheaded by the Supporters Trust, is absolutely incredible. And when you see what happened down the road from us at Bury, at Macclesfield,
what's going on at Oldham as well?
What's going on at Oldham? What nearly happened at Bolton? It's put people. It's made people a little bit more aware and put their guard up a little bit. So that's exactly what we've done. They've tried to take on Rochdale because I think they thought it was an easy capture, and they've taken on the wrong people, I think.
Yep, certainly have, and it's really good to see. I mean, we always say on our podcast as well, what a great away day Rochdale is, and a great club as well. So it's really good to hear that. Let's talk about things on the pitch now.
Do we have to?
Well, you know, coming down at the start of the season, we said that, you know, in the summer we actually had you guys down as potentially going down, because the fact that I think when we recorded our preview podcast, you still only had about 12 or 13 players registered for the season. So it was difficult. That how do you think Robbie Stockdale's done in his first management job? Because obviously coming into a situation like that can't be easy for anyone, but he seems to have steadied the ship, albeit a bit of a drop in form, particularly of late.
It depends who you speak to, because at the minute there's an awful lot of people who would disagree with that. The football that we're playing is not particularly good. Myself personally, I'm still fully behind him. The job that he came into, he basically came into an absolute car crash of a club without knowing it was a car crash. Pretty much the day he signed to become our manager, we seemed to have restrictions put on us in terms of transfers. And there was the whole thing going on off the field. We barely had a squad. He's had basically 2 weeks to get together a squad that's capable of playing in League Two, and that job, I don't think it can be understated how big a job that was. He's also had the January transfer window, and I think this is where people are getting a little bit annoyed, because he has had money to spend in this January transfer window. So obviously we've brought in Savon Campbell from Woking for a 6-figure sum. We've brought in Luke Charman from Darlington, who I think was linked with you lot for a little briefly, bit. And we've barely seen Luke Charman yet. So it's a lot of people are seriously losing patience. Even some of the lads on our podcast. In fact, I seem to be the only one who's backing him at the moment. But they're it's been a case of that the performances are not brilliant. The same mistakes are being made. My own opinion is this season was always going to be one where staying up was the only objective, and then we build from there. So I'd like to see him with a full pre-season, because he came in halfway through our pre-season, and I'd like to see him with another transfer window to to be able to say that the squad that he has got is pretty much his.
It's interesting you say that about not playing well, because when we played you about a month ago or so now, wasn't it? I think in Paul Simpson's first home game back in charge. I have to say, you're one of the best teams I've seen this season in terms of the football you played. You really played well that night, and any other night you probably would have beaten us, but it was just that sort of atmosphere that was behind us that really drove us on.
Yeah, so I was at that game, and I agree with that. I thought we played well for the most part. We don't seem to be able to string two good halves together. Yeah. I said to a mate of mine the other, we can't seem to put two halves together, and he said we can, but they're two bad halves.
Not very good ones.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's the annoying thing. I mean, Tuesday night against Mansfield, I thought we played really well first half, and played fairly well second half, but we still came away with nothing. We've stopped creating chances, having been one of the teams that create more chances than other teams earlier on in the season. Losing Jake Beasley in the January transfer window, albeit not surprising, has hit us a little bit harder than I think people thought it would. Mm-hmm. Same with Aaron Marley. So we're not creating that many chances, and we do seem to be a little bit brittle at the back as well.
Yeah, it's just frustrating, isn't it, sometimes when that happens. It just, it's you feel like you're almost there with the squad, don't you? But maybe, like you said, he just needs another pre-season to build it a bit further. Let's talk then about ex-players and links between the two clubs and the teams. Looking for your squad, I don't think actually there is any ex-Carlisle player links in there, interestingly. Normally there's one or two, but for once, I don't think there is. Looking for our squad, there is one or two. I think, did you have Magnus Norman on loan, I think, briefly? Well,
did we?
He's not first choice for us now, I think it's fair to say. So you probably won't see him on Tuesday night. But yeah.
That's a shame for us. He will go down as one of the worst goalkeepers we've possibly ever had. Certainly in my time watching Rochdale, he was absolutely dreadful. I remember a game at Doncaster on New Year's Day a couple of years ago, and he was literally being booed by our supporters. I think we lost. I think we conceded 5, and at least 3 were his fault, and it was just an absolute mess. And it's a loan spell that everybody would love to forget, but his name will come up for years and years in sort of when you name your worst ever 11s. His name will certainly get a mention, I think. Yeah. Is there anybody else on your team?
I think Lewis Alessandro is another one, isn't he? I think he didn't replace so much for us this second half of this season, but he's one who done well actually for us when he's been with us. Yeah,
it's a good shout because he actually lives near me. He's a Harewood lad. He used to play for the team that my son plays against most weeks when he was younger as well. So yeah, he's a local lad, Lewis. See him knocking about all the time. When he signed for us, I was quite excited when he signed for us, but for whatever reason, Keith Hill barely played him, and I thought he'd sort of drop out the league and sort of head back down the footballing pyramid after that. But he seems to have done well for yourselves post Rochdale, so fair play to him.
He's done okay. I think he's got to the point now where he's probably going to be leaving in the summer. I think it's more a case of he's a useful sub to bring on at the moment. And of course, the only other link is the man in the manager's hot seat. Didn't have the best of times for you guys, but it's interesting. In fact, he did a fans forum, Paul Simpson, not long after he got appointed, and he did basically admit I deserved to get sacked at Rochdale. Whatever, I just wasn't good enough, and it was a big learning curve for him. And he actually didn't even want the job, but they offered it to him, so it was quite interesting. That how did you look back on his time in charge?
Yeah, it's a time that I remember very well. He first came in as a player in February-ish of the season before he was a manager, and he was fantastic. Like so much better than that level. He was unbelievable for us. Pretty much steered us into the playoffs that season, and I genuinely thought we were going up. As a player, magnificent. Then he got the managerial role. because John Hollins, there was an issue with Hollins, and he ended up leaving, and Simpson was at the time it seemed like an obvious choice, to be honest with you, and I was very pleased when we made it, because everything pointed to us having a really good season, and it just didn't pan out that way. No. He didn't stop playing himself, which to an extent I get because of how good he was. Yeah. But if that's the case, you need somebody who can manage from the dugout, and we didn't have that in Jamie Hyland. It also stagnated the progress of a certain Patrick McCourt, Kevin Townsend, and a couple of other very good young prospects that we had that had done very well previously. He also brought in some pretty marquee signings for Rochdale, players like Lee Hodges. I don't know if you remember him.
Yes,
at Scunthorpe.
Yeah, good player.
Chris Beach, obviously, ex-manager of yours, and took a side that finished 5th to a side that finished 19th, and having seemingly improved the squad. So we did have a good FA Cup run, to his credit. Interesting that he's come out and admitted that it wasn't the best time at Rochdale, and fair play to him for that. To be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, I'd highly recommend listening to, because he did talk quite a bit about how he got the Rochdale job and stuff like that, and it's really interesting because he basically does admit he wasn't really ready for it at the time, and he only basically did an interview with you guys as basically he did it as a basically testing himself to see how you were doing an interview. He wasn't really that fussed on it, and it was only like months later he said that he actually got offered the job separately, obviously at a different time, when Hollins decided to leave. So yeah, interesting on that one. Obviously very popular up at Brunton Park, I think it's fair to say, in comparison. Chaff, I've kept you for quite a while now, so we'll wrap things up now. We'd like to do a little predictions ahead of our game. So have you got a prediction for this one?
I'd like to say that we can win. I think we can win the game. The prediction I'm going to go with a draw. We've drawn 16 games this season. Mm-hmm. Nobody else has drawn more than us. And it's nigh time that you guys stop winning games. I'm getting a bit fed up of that, to be honest with you. Yeah. So yeah, I'll go with a score draw, and plenty of booing if we've not picked up a win before that.
Chaff, thanks very much for your time, and genuinely all the best for the rest of the season, and I hope all the off the pitch issues get sorted really quickly at Rochdale.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Cheers. Big thanks once again to Chaff for taking his time to speak to us ahead of the big game, and hopefully we wish all the best to Rochdale and hope all the off the field issues get sorted, because they're a proper football league club, aren't they, Dan? They're one of those top away days, top clubs, so hopefully they can get it all resolved over the summer at the very least. So yeah, referee for this game, midweek game, Tuesday night, Spotland, or the Crown Oil Arena as it's known for sponsorship details. Terrible name that, isn't it? James Oldham from Derbyshire is the referee for this one. He was the referee for the original game that was postponed at the start of February, which seems ages ago now, doesn't it, really?
Yeah.
When you think of it, this would have been like Silva's debut, wouldn't it, and people like that. And Dennis is crazy. It's his third season as an EFL referee. He's taken charge of 25 games so far this season, handing out 92 yellow cards and 3 red cards. He last took charge of United for the 1-0 defeat to Chaff United in the League Cup back in August, start of the season. Head-to-head record, it's the 107th meeting between the two sides. I think they might be the side we've played the most times.
Yeah.
I think a little bit ahead of Hartlepool.
It's my most visited league ground after Brunton Park, Rochdale.
Unsurprisingly, Tranmere is my most visited after Brunton Park, but I think Rochdale might be third or fourth, I think, possibly. Yeah. Not 100% on that one. Last season, they finished 21st in League One, which led to their relegation for the first time in 7 seasons. They're currently 19th on 40 points from 37 games, 1 place and 3 points behind United. It's rare we've been able to say that for previous season, isn't it? Having played the same number of games, this is obviously the game in hand for both teams. Their manager, Robbie Stockdale, appointed last summer. He's got a contract till next summer. If we mentioned this before, I mean, Dan, he's someone who was linked with the Blues job in the past. I think he possibly interviewed at least once for the role. Certainly highly thought of as a coach. He's had role. He previously was a player at Middlesbrough and Tranmere. He's had sort of coaching roles at Sunderland, I think, mostly, hasn't he? And Grimsby, I think, was the other one where he's done a few roles. Took over the job in very trying circumstances, though, didn't he, last summer? I think it's fair to say. They had pretty much no... When we were doing the season preview, they had next to no squad, didn't they? I think they had about 11 players registered, something like that. So to put together a squad, and actually, at no point have they ever really been in danger of going down this season, have they, Rochdale?
No, they've always just been a little bit above, haven't they?
Yeah, there was one point where actually it looked like they might even kick on to finish mid-table and a little bit higher, but I think losing Jake Beasley in January to Blackpool was a bit of a kicker for them, wasn't it, really? That knocked them back a little bit, but they've recovered slightly. I mean, I think, to be honest, for Stockdale, he's probably looking to think comfortably avoiding relegation in my first season in charge is going to be a good achievement, actually.
With everything that was going on,
off the pitch especially. Last time out, they made it 6 games without a win as they went down to a 1-0 defeat to Mansfield Town thanks to Jordan Bowery's 86th minute goal. Form table wise, they're currently 20th in the last 6 game form table, record of loss, drawn, loss. So probably a draw on Tuesday night if they draw at the weekend, you'd think. But not going great for them form wise at the moment. Quick look through their squad, Dan. Anyone stand out to you? Go.
I think the one that'll stand out for most Carlisle fans is probably Alex Newby. The sign from Chorley played well against us on the Tuesday night the other week. A few people sort of said he looked like a younger version of Jamie Devitt, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he was kind of like he was kind of tricky, almost like winger style player there, wasn't he? Really?
Yeah.
I quite like the look of him. I thought that I have to say,
out of contract in the summer as well.
Is he? Oh, interesting. Hopefully, Simmo will be keeping an eye on him.
From Barrow as well.
He's from Barrow, actually. Yeah, you're right. I think he played one game for them. I think possibly in the past for Barrow. I have to say I was quite impressed with them when we played them in that Tuesday night game. Obviously, I was watching on iFollow. I think you were at the game, weren't you, Dan?
Yeah. The performance certainly belied the league position, didn't it?
It was a brilliant result for us because we weren't the better team for most of that game. They played some really nice football, and I know their fans were really frustrated afterwards. But we were saying it like, look, you are, as long as you stay up this season, if you build on the squad you've got, I'm sure they'll be up near the playoffs next season if they can do that. Because they've got some good players in there. I think little Liam Kelly, who they signed from, was he the one they signed from PSV and Eindhoven? Was he? I think he was previously at Reading, little Irish lad. He very good on the ball, wasn't he? Really, really tiny little player he was. I think even what's his name? Oh, I forgot his name now. I mean, at centre back, Egan O'Connell looked a decent player. I knew he was made to look a bit. He was made to look a bit daft by Silva for the second goal of that game. I can't remember. It was one of them anyway. But he looked a good player, and as you mentioned there, Newby looks really tidy. I do look at their squad there and think to myself, there's not a huge amount of experience in there, is there?
No.
That's the thing that stands out. So that's where, I know our squad isn't exactly packed with experience either, but
that'll probably be top of the list in the summer for the recruitment, though, won't it?
You'd think so, yeah. I mean, McNulty's obviously got bags of experience, but beyond that, actually, a lot of them are very young players. A.D. White as well, actually, but I don't know how much he's actually been playing for them. But yeah, so it should be an interesting game, this one. Like we said, it'll all be touched in the chat we have with the opposition fans, but off the field is where all the issues are for Rochdale at the moment, isn't it, really? So probably best if some bizarre reason you've skipped past that section, go back and listen to it, because I'm sure we'll talk about it in plenty of depth. But there you go. So we have the predictions then, Dan?
Yeah.
So what we go for the 2 games?
Right. Bristol Rovers is going to be a 2-2 draw with goals from John Mellish and Kristian Dennis.
Yeah.
And then Rochdale is going to be a 3-1 win with goals from Dennis, Gibson and Feeney. Going to get another goal.
Okay. I'm going to go for a 2-1 win against Bristol Rovers with John Mellish and Big Dinell Simmo getting the goals. A couple of centre-backs with goals.
I dread to think what Simmo's celebration's going to be when he scores it. I think swinging off the roof of the away ends, or,
he'll be halfway down Warwick Road probably with his top off, taps off. And as well as that, I think he'll score a 90th minute winner to make it even better. Rochdale game 2-0 win and goals from Brennan Dickinson and Amari Patrick get back on the score sheet. Hasn't had one for a while, so there you go. That's what I'm going with. Yeah, well, there's a while, a couple of games. It's a bit of a drought for Big Amari. So right, here's what Mike had to say. That's what his predictions were.
I'm going to go for an all-action 2-2 draw against Bristol Rovers with Dennis and Patrick getting our goals, and then we'll follow it up with a 2-1 win against Rochdale with Mellish and Patrick again.
Very similar. Yeah, I mean, for a second there, I thought he was going to predict exactly the same as you.
Yeah.
I was thinking of. There you go. So that's Mike's predictions. Before we go to the X-Files section, Dan, should we try and get the answer for Mike's question?
Yeah.
Okay. So 2 goal scorers who scored against Newcastle, or scored in the game for Carlisle against Newcastle United friendly in 2007, and the player playing for Carlisle who was ex-Bristol Rovers and ex-Newcastle that day. The player, I think, was Kevin Gall, if I remember rightly.
Definitely.
I'm pretty sure it's him. Goal scorer-wise, did Gary Medine score our goal?
No.
I think
Danny Livesey scored.
Danny Livesey, you're right. I remember that now.
And Newcastle equalised at the last minute with Nobby Solano.
I knew it was Nobby Solano. It was a free kick, was it? Was it a free kick? Was it?
Yeah.
And then
very late on.
Yeah. So right, let's see if we got that right. Here's Mike's answers to the question.
So it was Danny Livesey who scored for us, and Nobby Solano got a last-minute equaliser for the Magpies, and the player that played for us and Bristol Rovers and also started out in Newcastle was, of course, Kevin Gall.
Oh, there you go. We got it right. Yeah. Together, just about. Right, X-File section, Dan. Your section here. So, busy weekend in terms of goal scores, wasn't it?
Right, Saturday. Naki Wells scored for Bristol City in a 2-2 draw with West Brom. Tom Lawrence scored a penalty for Derby in a 1-1 draw with Coventry. Ryan Bowman scored in a shock win for Shrewsbury, 3-0 at Rotherham. Big surprise, that.
Rotherham are really struggling, actually, in recent weeks.
Yeah.
They've gone off the boil a bit, haven't they?
They've given a chance, haven't they? Paddy Madden, regular recently, scored a penalty in Stockport's 4-2 win over Wealdstone. Kedwin Scott scored in Gateshead's 2-1 win at Boston. Connor Tinian scored in Workington's 2-1 win over Trafford. Christy Elliott, the Rolls Royce himself, scored the opening goal for Dundee against Rangers, set up by another ex-Blue, Jordan Marshall, who was YTS here. But James Tavernier then missed a penalty in that game. And then Jack Marriott scored for Peterborough in the 3-1 win at QPR on Sunday, which was another turn-up.
He's on a bit of a roll, isn't he, Jack Marriott?
Yeah, he's scored 1 or 2 recently. Midweek, not much midweek, but Kedwin Scott got a hat-trick in that 4-0 win we mentioned at the start of the show.
I mean, he's going to get a move to a bigger club in the summer, isn't he? And we're going to be looking back and thinking, why didn't we just give him a 1-year deal, for God's sake?
Paddy Madden, his own good form, another goal. Stockport, 3-0 win at Kings Lynn. And the only other bit of news we've noticed was Kieran Westwood signing for QPR to solve their goalkeeping crisis.
He's been training at Crewe, hasn't he, all season?
Yeah. We haven't noticed any international call-ups, but I will be scouring the various lists over the next few days.
There's always someone like an Alex McQueen or someone like that. You don't expect
Kevin Wright for Sierra Leone or something.
Something like that usually.
But,
there you go. That's it all done then, Dan. That's this week's episode wrapped up. An enjoyable one, talking about all things beating Barrow, isn't it? And looking forward to another 2 big games as we're getting to the sort of final stretch of the season, don't we? In terms of upcoming episodes, we've got an episode out next week as well, obviously previewing the Tranmere game. It's a game that I'm going to be at. The week after that, as I mentioned, I'm not going to be at the Exeter game, and neither are you, are we? So we're going to have to work out what we do with that one. One thing we are going to be doing in the next few days, actually, is starting to look towards next season, what our plans, aren't we? And potentially, we're looking at the possibility of setting up a Patreon for the podcast next season. And what that will involve in terms of getting episodes early and little bonus bits and stuff like that, we don't know the full details yet. But we're going to have a look at it. We're going to ask you guys what you'd like to see if we did set up something like a Patreon for next season. I mean, when we talk about, we're only talking like a few quid a month, aren't we? Something like that, aren't we? Really, just where people can chip in. So we'll have a look at that, and we'll sort something out hopefully soon and get your ideas towards that. So with that, Dan, that's it, isn't it? Really. So we'll be at the game at the weekend, and we'll be back next week to review that match. Thanks everyone for listening, and up the Blues.
Up the Blues.